viewer and partly away. A bewildering tension is created as the leg pedestal slips toward the ground, while the crystalline shapes of waist, breast, and moon-like one-eyed head take flight upward, thus emphasizing its floating quality. The Couple, 1926. Giacometti's striving for a symbolic representation of reality is evident in this early sculpture, where, isolated and raised up on individual pedestals, two figures appear as symbols of their gender. The woman's open form is indicated by the frame, while the overall shape recalls the self-portrait of 1925. The details, applied or incised signs, may be read as elements of the face or of the whole body, and thus, like the chiasmic transposition of the sexual features of one onto the eyes of the other, indicate the other dimensions of the figure's sexuality. This pair of figures, utterly static, yet with a latent dynamism in their challenging and complementary plasticity, introduced the dialogue of the sexes that Giacometti depicts in many of his subsequent sculptures. Dancers, 1927. Head, 1926. Small Crouching Man, 1926, is perhaps the most idiosyncratic of the small male figures that Giacometti made between 1925 and 1930. Its more realistic appearance is distinctly different from the others, and it is obviously related more to the environment of Stampa than to the avant-garde circles of Paris. In order to achieve a flatness similar to that of his small Paris figures, square rather than reaching upward, Giacometti had bent the limbs of this figure into a crouching form. The Artist's Mother, 1927. In The Artist's Mother, Giacometti pursued the same questions, setting out to create a sculpture that would appear to be fully three-dimensional and could be viewed from all sides, and which appears, at the same time, to have been stripped of its mass, thus completing what he had attempted perhaps only playfully in The Small Crouching Man. The Artist's Father, 1927. The Artist's Father, seen here in bronze, displays the original addictive technique of clay sculpture. The build-up and accumulation of material also serve to give character to details, such as the strands of hair. The Artist's Father, 2, 1927. In the marble head of Giovanni, the medium seems entirely in the service of the basic form, and yet the piece bears a striking likeness to its subject, even without details. It is only in certain lights that features appear on the front surface of the head in most delicate relief, as though gleaming from within the crystalline stone, but it is the haptic plastic aspect that dominates. The Artist's Father, flat and engraved, 1927. The purely optical painterly counterpart of the marble head is to be found in this bronze sculpture. Here, in the boldest of the series, the front half of the head is cut away flat, parallel to the line of the face, and the individual features are scratched in as though in a drawing. At the time, Giacometti continued work in realistic idioms alongside his Cubist-influenced and ethnographic forms, creating a degree of mutually enriching tension between different artistic possibilities. The Artist's Father, 1932. Man, Apollo, 1929. Woman, 1928-29. Gazing Head, 1928. With Gazing Head, Giacometti succeeded in making an elusive, non-corporeal structure. As plain and obvious as it is bewildering, This work is the completely innovative starting point for future developments. The flattened face of the head of his father and the foreshortened head of his mother are here carried to an extreme, resulting in a sequence of flat figures and bodily parts. If the viewer wants to look into its eyes, the gazing head switches to a profile view. It looks, but allows no one to look it in the eye. Reclining Woman, 1929. Reclining Woman Who Dreams, 1929. Here, the artist laid a weightless, planar plastic form down horizontally. The cosmic dimension resonates here, when the work is read as a dream landscape with a heavenly body above the waves. Man and Woman, 1929. Three Figures Outdoors, 1929. L'heure des traces, 1930. Cage, 1930. Suspended Ball, 1930. Vide Poche, 1930. Giacometti demonstrated here, with programmatic clarity, the concept of the surrealists, that works of art should be found items from the subconscious that are lifted into everyday reality. In place of the pedestal, there is an everyday object, a little bowl into which one empties the contents of one's pockets. This object does not separate the spheres of art and ordinary life, but rather inextricably binds one to the other. What comes out of the pockets now, two shrunken offshoots of the plaque sculptures, does not deny their deeply hidden origins. They no longer stand, they are lying in the cavity, evoking the notion of a swinging movement which also threatens to unbalance the everyday object. Family Portrait, 1930. The Disagreeable Object to be Thrown Away, 1931. This sculpture deforms the visionary early work of the gazing head into something low, crooked, and directionless, with obscene, aggressive protuberances. One could certainly talk of fetishes here in the original sense of something made, which is imbued with sinister psychic forces, yet this vulgarity is embodied in a form that may be disturbingly incomprehensible, and as such formless, but nevertheless sculpturally perfect. Disagreeable Object, 1931. Model for a Square, 1930-31. Model for a square was perhaps the first idea on the subject of models of squares. There is then a certain appropriateness about the interpretation of this work as a Garden of Eden with the tree of knowledge and the serpent. Project for a Passageway,